We recently passed the 50th anniversary of the Watergate break-in, and despite all the exhaustive investigative reporting that's been done in the ensuing decades, nobody has any idea, right up to the present day, as to the location of the missing 18-and-a-half-minute section of audio tape from President Nixon's meeting with Chief of Staff Bob Haldeman on the morning of 20 July 1972. But tonight, ladies and gentlemen, I can report that we know with absolute categorical certitude where that audio tape is not. It is not in Melania Trump's panty drawer. But I guess J. Edgar Hoover's panty drawer remains a possibility. Thanks! I'll be here all week. Now, folks, you know I don't like to spend too much time gloating about it when I have inevitably proven right about things, but sometimes duty demands it, so uncomfortable though it may be, it's just got to be done. Now, for as long as I've been doing this program, and far longer yet, I've been a bit of a voice in the wilderness in saying the FBI is a rogue agency. It's always been a rogue agency. It's corrupt. It's rotten to the core. It cannot be reformed. Thus, it must be abolished. And for so many years, each time I mention it to somebody, the usual reaction has been, whoa! Pump the brakes there, cowboy. Abolish the FBI. That's crazy talk. But after last week, let's just say I am no longer the only guy riding the abolish the FBI train. And it's nice to have some company, though it's regrettable that it took a cartoonishly improper raid on the private residence of the former president in order for large numbers of people to start realizing, wow, the FBI really is crooked. And big props to Senator Josh Hawley for being the first guy in Congress to come out and say what needs to happen now. The Attorney General needs to resign or be impeached. The FBI Director needs to resign or be impeached. And the FBI itself needs to be broken up and scattered to the four winds. He did actually stop short of saying the word abolished, which is a slight disappointment, but thumbs up on the rest of it. I have spoken before about how weird and unnatural it is that there seems to no longer be any anti-war left. For Christ's sake, the people who were clogging up every city center from coast to coast 20 years ago today marching against the Iraq War, a war they wound up being 100% correct about, by the way, those same people today are sending campaign cash to Dick Cheney's little girl. Dick Cheney, the guy they viewed as the wellspring of all moral evil in the universe before they moved on from him to the Koch brothers, before they moved on from them to Donald Trump. The American left today, I sure don't see any inkling of anti-war sentiment. Today's leftists actually complain when we only send $40 billion worth of weapons to some corrupt regime in Eastern Europe so they can fight a proxy war against Russia. But it's not just the area of foreign armed conflict where the left is currently standing on its ideological head. What about their fawning embrace of the most odious aspects of the national security state? What about their celebration of the fact that Capitol rioters, who stand accused of nothing but political protest in some cases, have been held in pretrial detention without bail, often in solitary confinement, for coming up on 2 years now? Didn't we used to all be in agreement that an accused party has the right to a speedy trial? Didn't the Fifth Amendment used to be the least controversial thing in the Bill of Rights? And what about the willingness of people on the left to be handmaidens for corporate America? I'll grant you, it was a smart move by the world's richest men when they decided to falsely cloak themselves in the language of woke leftism, because, man, if you just vomit out the right catchphrases at the right time, you can make leftists abandon everything they thought they believed and not even realize it. What are my marching orders, Bill Gates? Right away, Jeff Bezos. Thank you, Time Warner. May I have another? Oh, but wait, I forgot. Your purple hair and your neck tattoos make you automatically a rebel iconoclast. Yeah, kid. Keep telling yourself that, and maybe you won't ever notice what a ridiculous, unprincipled stooge you are for the fucking establishment. From high atop the battlements of Castle Curmudgeon, where if I ever get a knock from the FBI, I promise to open the door and exclaim, "Oh! So you've seen my podcast, have you? Good evening, Mr. and Mrs. America, and all ships at sea. Welcome to the program. I am your eponymous host and humble servant. And do you want to know what else is not in Melania Trump's panty drawer? Any damn thing the FBI has a legitimate interest in searching for. How about that? How anybody can rationalize this one is so far beyond me, so Let's state some facts about the world, shall we? Now, ever since the summer of 2016, when it looked for certain like Trump was not a joke candidate, but he had a good chance of being the Republican nominee, the Washington establishment, and the FBI in particular, has made it their mission to destroy this man personally and wreck his political career by absolutely any and all means at their disposal. And make no mistake, they have used every means at their disposal. There were 2 fake impeachments, including one, hilariously, that happened after he left office. There was also the Bob Mueller Russia collusion investigation, which was supposed to deliver the pretext for the first fake impeachment, but they had to go to the backup plan with the stupid Ukrainian phone call after Mueller showed up on Capitol Hill for his much-anticipated bombshell testimony. And he proceeded to spend the day dozing off and peeing down his leg and evincing about as much detailed knowledge of his own investigation as you probably could have got from a random homeless man off the street. The Steele dossier? The what now? Steele? I can't say I've ever heard of that. And on top of all that, we've had the clown show of the fake January 6th committee, which I like to lovingly call Fake Impeachment Episode 3. And the clown show of the fake fishing expedition the New York Attorney General has been conducting for God knows how long now. In perfect honesty, I have never heard the Attorney General of New York say one word on any other topic except investigating Donald Trump for whatever the hell it is they think they're investigating him for. The investigators themselves probably have no idea. But he must have done something illegal, right? But then that's the thing, isn't it? Over the course of the past 7 years, Donald Trump has become beyond any shadow of a doubt the most investigated man in the history of the United States. Our federal government has spent billions upon billions of dollars of your money, including while he was president and they were supposed to be working for him, on trying to find something, anything, that they can ruin him with. And yet after all that, Trump still doesn't stand credibly accused of violating any criminal statute whatsoever. Now, if we were living in a sane world, this is the point where the deep state might throw up their hands and say, look, we've given it the old college try, but the man just hasn't committed any crime, so there's not much point in continuing to investigate him. But we're not living in a sane world. We live in a world where, for a variety of reasons, not all of them involving Trump, our friends on the left have lost the entire concept of limiting principles. They do not know how to rein themselves in. They are so obsessed with this white whale of theirs, or orange whale, as the case may be. They've been chasing it so fervently for so long, they have lost the capacity for exercising restraint or even professional discretion. They may not even realize the full extent of their own corruption, or how horrified most of the country is by what they have just done. For as we know all too well by now, Trump's psychosis complex is one hell of a drug. Now, President and semi-animated cadaver Geritol Joe Biden says he didn't have any idea that his Justice Department was about to execute a paramilitary raid upon the residence of a former president, or that it was being done on the basis of a search warrant issued by a judge who is a rabidly anti-Trump internet troll in his spare time. And frankly, there is no version of this thing that looks good for the president. If his stated excuse is true and he really had no idea the home of a former president was being invaded by his own subordinates, then he has had his authority as president undermined in a really shocking way. And let's not forget fake impeachment number 1 here, Ukrainian boogaloo, because it's pretty relevant. Suddenly the rationale behind that fake impeachment is looming pretty large. Remember when that whole circus show was predicated on the idea that if a president investigates his potential future election opponent, that is so far beyond the pale of acceptable conduct that it warrants being removed from office? So how's that rationale aging for you, guys? Like fine wine, I imagine? When you are doing the exact same thing in Joe Biden's name that Joe Biden's supporters said a few years ago was completely unacceptable conduct for a president, to the point of being impeachable? Do they really not think about any of this stuff before they go public with their talking points? Have social media really turned their brains into mashed potatoes to that degree? So if Joe is telling the truth here, and he really had no idea about any of this, Well, that makes him look incredibly bad. But if he did know and he's lying, well, that's orders of magnitude worse. Because then we have got a president who is willfully and intentionally using the apparatus of federal law enforcement to conduct hit jobs on his political opponents. Merrick Garland came out on Tuesday and said he personally approved the seeking of the search warrant. And then everybody on the right immediately conflated that with him approving of the serving of the search warrant. And this is one of those very frustrating cases where on the left, they choose their words very carefully, very judiciously, and people on the right then make the mistake of hearing something other than what was actually said. Because Garland never said that he approved the manner or the timing in which the warrant got served. He said only that he approved the warrant being sought. In other words, if and when the heat starts coming down on him for the fact that it was an overblown military-style raid in service of the most broadly worded search warrant in the history of search warrants, oh, you just go grab whatever. But you go deep and hard on that panty drawer, damn it. Because the P-tape from the Steele dossier could be hiding in there for all we know. Then Garland now has plausible deniability to say he didn't know about any of that. And not a single commentator on the right called him out on it on the same day when they should have, when it would have mattered. That statement was interpreted exactly the way that sleazy, slimy bastard wanted it to be. And that sucks. But it seems pretty clear now, in my judgment, that the bargain that Merrick Garland was made to agree to as a condition of becoming the Attorney General, especially in light of recent developments, the act of nominating Merrick Garland as Attorney General in the first place can be seen as a sort of first shot across the bow of the Republicans and of all conservative Americans more broadly. We know this guy has an axe to grind since he was kept off the Supreme Court through a series of procedural machinations in 2016 by Mitch McConnell and the Senate Republicans. So putting that guy up for Attorney General might have been Joe Biden's fun way of saying, okay, this is political warfare, bitches. I'm bringing in an AG who is predisposed to hate Republicans already. And that is exactly how I expect him to act. And it seems pretty abundantly clear also that they made sure Garland knew his position was contingent upon his willingness to sign on 100%, no questions asked, to the radical leftist policy program and to enforce it using the powers of federal law enforcement. And think about this just for a dose of perspective. We have a U.S. Attorney General who stated on the record that parents who go to school board meetings and get upset about the teachers trying to trans their kids are domestic terrorists. And that probably isn't among the top 10 most odious things he has said and done. And of course, it's just as obvious that Joe Biden came to the presidency by largely the same route, by agreeing to bend the knee to the most monstrous impulses of the radical left. It wasn't some big damn coincidence that the whole party within a 36-hour period right on the eve of Super Tuesday suddenly coalesced around the guy who was in fourth place at that time and hadn't won any primaries, who was being called a segregationist on the debate stage by his own future running mate and generally being mocked by everybody else. I'm just saying, something changed there, and it changed in a big damn hurry. It was either nominate Bernie Sanders or convince Joe Biden to adopt all of Bernie Sanders' policy positions. And since Joe Biden doesn't have any beliefs or principles, he was all too happy to just slip into the evening gown of Bolshevism, as long as it means getting the only thing he has ever wanted. I mean, aside from long, slow showers with his preteen daughter. Allegedly. Of course, you do all that, and then you leave yourself in the exceedingly awkward position of being the party that calls itself progressive, the party that makes smashing the patriarchy and hating whitey the two biggest planks in its platform. But the people running the thing are almost exclusively crusty old white folks above the age of 80. And at the risk of belaboring the point, seriously, the FBI has got to go. If I hear one more idiot refer to the FBI as a cherished institution, I might have a Dustin Hoffman Rain Man style freakout. Especially, like I said before, when the people who are making all the excuses for the FBI are self-styled liberals who can't see they are about as far away from liberalism as Rosie O'Donnell is from being attractive. Liberals don't They can't support an all-powerful security state that conducts politically motivated, made-for-TV raids against opponents of the regime who are not credibly accused of committing any crime. It's been said a lot in recent days that this is third world stuff, banana republic stuff, tin pot dictatorship stuff, and it can't be said too much because it is all of those things. And if you're somebody who spends your days trying to rationalize this type of conduct by the central government and its agents, if you're totally cool with all of this just because the orange man is bad, then it is your right to think that way, but don't call yourself a liberal, and don't say you value our democracy, because you don't. There is no imperative reason why the FBI needs to exist. It's been around, 90 years? And it was only established in the first place as a monument to the ego of a cross-dressing homosexual psychopath. They gave Hoover his own agency and carte blanche to run it as he saw fit because he was smart enough to start getting the dirt on everybody in Washington from the first day he was there. Everybody in Congress, president, vice president, the cabinet, the civil service, Hoover made it his mission above all else to know who they were screwing, what drugs they were on, what skeletons they had in their closet. The number one mission of the FBI always has been to safeguard itself by blackmailing or threatening to blackmail or retaining the option of blackmailing anyone in that town who might make themselves a threat to the Bureau. Now, this sort of paranoia, it's characterized the FBI right from the beginning, and it didn't die when Hoover did. The entire Bureau is steeped in a toxic culture that says the FBI looks out for the FBI first and foremost, that what is good for the Bureau is automatically good for the country, when in reality, that is often quite the opposite of the case. J. Edgar Hoover was not a good man. He was not a praiseworthy public servant. He was a crook and a sex pervert and a rogue regime unto himself. You can't reform the FBI because there is no good FBI to go back to. You can't rehabilitate the FBI because it's impossible to separate the Bureau from the putrid stench of the execrable individual who founded it. FBI, ATF, both of them, you can wipe them away tomorrow. Their essential functions can be folded into the U.S. Marshals, and everything else is non-essential, or it can devolve to the states. And then, since we're off to such a nice start, we can abolish every new cabinet agency that's been established since 1972. Education, transportation, energy, homeland security, all of it. It all goes. Whatever's left of the federal bureaucracy after that, hack another 1/3 off of it. Then every agency and bureau that can be moved out of Washington, move it the hell out of Washington. And then for the cherry on top, get rid of the goddamn god-awful 17th Amendment. Because once you do that, and return the Senate to being made up of representatives of the state legislatures, you can get rid of the IRS and all federal taxes. Because the way we set this thing up originally, the federal budget was whatever the states decided it was. And the Senate was where that happened. Taxation was done at the state and local level, and the senators, who were the direct representatives of the state governments, would decide how much of that revenue went to finance the operations of the central government. Checks and balances, ladies and gentlemen, checks and balances. Aren't they lovely? But alas, they only work when they remain in place. But there is no good reason why we can't get rid of that awful amendment, just like we have got rid of other awful amendments in the past. Just as there is no good reason why we need to be running our two-party system with the same two parties we had in freaking 1860. We have a really wondrously good system of government, the best one ever devised by the minds of men. But we've screwed it up along the way, made it not run quite as well, but all we need to do is fix it. And correcting an unforced error is the easiest fix of all, is it not? You just need to undo the dumb thing you did. I don't have any doubt there will be some indictment handed down against Donald Trump in the near future because, like I said, there are no limiting principles anymore on that side. Biden and Garland have both sold their souls to the woke radicals, and the people who are their benefactors, they expect a Trump indictment. So no matter how flimsy the predicate might be, there will be, mark my words, a Trump indictment. But that is not the thing that causes me anxiety. The thing that causes me anxiety is when Trump wins the election and they try to prevent him from taking office. That is the last Rubicon they can cross, and if and when they do, I think that's the point where armed conflict begins. And it will be worse than any of us can possibly envisage if it happens. And we are left having to rely upon crazy people discovering a sense of restraint in order for it not to happen. And I guess I have not closed on a very comforting note. Sorry about that, but let's look on the bright side. I only paid $5.37 a gallon at the gas station today. Isn't that lovely? And they cleaned up the vagrant camp in front of my work. It's going to be a bright, sunshiny day. So there you go. The ending is a little bit less dour now, right? Thank you very much indeed for watching. Have a pleasant tomorrow. See you Wednesday. Sorry about last week's brief unscheduled sabbatical. Do not comply. Don't get that monkeypox. Get off my lawn.